Hello, I'm Sandra, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to draw this set of stylized flower cups in Procreate using my brush set Lovely Brushes for Procreate. Don't forget to grab your free color palette and drawing sketch for today's video linked in the description box below, as well as a link to the brushes that I'll be using. We're going to start by turning the opacity down on the sketch layer and tapping this plus button and dragging the layer below the sketch. We'll call this layer background and we'll make one more and call that layer table. For the background layer, I'm going to grab this lighter blue and drop it in the entire layer, and we'll add texture to it later. For the table layer, I'm going to be using the grainy block brush and grabbing this darker blue. This grainy block brush is awesome for instant texture with quick application. I also like soft charcoal fill. That one fills a ton of space quickly but doesn't have a sharp outer edge like the block brush. Feel free to experiment and try out different brushes for this tutorial. For each cup of flowers, I'm going to be showing a few ways you can color block, texturize, shade, and add details with this brush set. Now let's create another layer above the background. This is going to be our cups layer. I'm going to use the butter brush for the first cup and the light purple. And this is going to give us a nice flat solid color. This is a similar shape to the block brush, so it's going to have that sharp block edge. I'm going to do the outline and then drag and drop in the color, making sure to go back and cover up what was missed. Then I'll alpha lock this layer and grab a darker purple and color the cup handle and the cup rim. Make sure to turn off alpha lock before moving on to your next cup. Next, I'll be using the Painty Streaker and grabbing the yellow color for the second cup. This is going to produce a really nice streaky edge that mimics a dry paintbrush. You can drag and drop the rest of the color or fill it in with a little extra of that fancy streaker texture. The third cup I'll be using Crackly Crayon and this light green. And this brush is great for producing a really nice crackly texture that still maintains a good amount of solid color. So you'll get that really crackly crayon texture that you can leave opaque or build up to be more dense. Now let's move on to our leaves. We're going to add another layer above the cups. Grab this light green color and back to the butter brush for the first cup. I'm going to quickly draw in these shapes. And grab the color and drop it in. So I'm going to go to my color picker, grab a darker green. I'm going to tap on this layer and click alpha lock. And then color in just the back leaf so that it doesn't blend into the front leaf. Turn the alpha layer back off before moving on to the next cup. Feel free to use the eraser tool to clean up the edges. Then I'll go back to my original light green, and for the second cup's leaves, I'm going to use the Smooth Painter brush. So this Smooth Painter is great for doing little lines, and the Lovely Liner is great for that as well, but the Smooth Painter can then get bigger and paint bigger shapes really nicely. Now for the last cup, I'm grabbing this dark blue, and this time I'll use the little crayon, but you can use Crackly Crayon or any other texture brushes. And I'll just go in and fill these leaves in. Our next step is the flowers, so add another layer above the rest. And I'm going to grab my butter brush again and the dark blue and fill the flower in. I'm going to grab the fancy streaker again and this medium pink and outline these flowers. As you're starting to notice, I'm making each of these floral cups in a different style. The first one is more of a flat style, the second one has that streaky, painty texture, and the third cup has more of that gritty, crackly texture. And drag and drop the color in. I'm also going to grab the lovely liner and the yellow color and make these little circles. For the third flower, let's grab the crackly crayon and this light purple. Now add a layer above the flowers, and this will be where we're adding our floral details and outlines. So for the first cup, we're grabbing the butter brush again, and I'm going to use the light pink for the inside of the flower, and then the dark pink for the circle. I'm going to turn off the sketch layer now because I have most of the information I need for this part. I'm going to minimize the butter brush to a small line weight and start adding in some lines. These are all stylistic flowers and cups, so you can be pretty playful with it. Then I'll grab a lighter green from the color picker and draw lines curved in the middle of these leaves. Moving on to the second flower, grab your fancy streaker and a dark pink. And then we're going to make these curved paint strokes following the direction of the floral's shape. The same way that rose petals are interwoven and overlap, we'll use varying thicknesses of curves to create that rose petal effect. We'll then grab a lighter pink and this time use a smaller line weight and do the same thing, but this time we're making the highlights of the petals. Next, I'll grab the yellow color and color pick a darker yellow, almost golden or orange, and use the crackly crayon. I'm just going to smudge each of these circle flowers to add a little texture. Last, for this flower, we'll grab any brush you want to use for the outlines of the leaves. I'll grab the butter brush and add some wiggly lines in the middle. And I realized that the third flower has no stem, so I'm going to use the crackly crayon and add that back in. Now moving on to the last flower cup, I'm going to color pick a dark purple and use the crackly crayon to make a big messy circle in the middle of this flower. Then I'll color pick a lighter yellow and draw a smaller circle on top of the dark purple. Last, I'll grab a lighter blue and make the leaves outlines using the same brush. Now we're moving on to textures. There are so many fun textures in this brush set. Don't feel stuck on using the ones that I use in this video. All of them offer a different fun effect, and a lot of the brushes that aren't labeled texture still have a ton of texture that you can use in this way. So add another layer, tap on it and select Clipping Mask, and then tap on the letter on the right side, which will drop down all of the overlay options and select Multiply. You can play around with the other overlays and see all the cool effects. For cup number 1, I want to show you guys Painty Streaker, so grab that and the purple color. This is a fun brush that I created because I wanted something that would show those really quick, realistic, opaque brush strokes, almost like watercolor. So you can glide the brush and create watery, messy brush strokes, or you can tap in different areas and it will keep producing different looking, quick painterly marks. For cup number 2, I'll play with the regular texture brushes. These are awesome for backgrounds, shading, or just using as a texture on objects. I'm going to grab the lovely crunch texture and the yellow and fill this cup. Now this isn't as dark as I'd like, so you can keep using the brush and it will continue to overlap and darken the texture, or if you need, you can use a darker yellow to make the texture show up darker. For the last cup, I'll grab the this and that texture and a light green color. You can also rotate the canvas to make the texture show up in different directions. Now I'm going to be repeating the texture steps for the leaves layer and the flowers layer. First, we want to create one new layer. I'll tap on it and select Clipping Mask. Then I tap the right side of the layer to select the overlay, multiply. Then I labeled the layer texture. Now I'm going to slide this layer towards the left and hit the button that says duplicate. I'm going to drag this layer above the flowers and clip it to the flowers. So now we have both of our texture layers ready. I'm going to go ahead and speed up this section and fill my flowers and leaves with the same texture I used on the cups, making sure to select the colors of each flower and leaf beforehand. You can also turn down the opacity by clicking the overlay layer and turning the opacity down if needed. Now let's play with some patterns and stamps. Add another layer above the cup and texture layer and tap on it and select Clipping Mask. And there are a few stamp brushes to play with. I'm going to grab the color purple and the Floral Whisper stamp. This one is a fun one because while some of the stamps are static, as in they don't move directions when you tap, this one moves directions so you can get a random output each time. And you can change the size of all the stamps as well. For the second cup, I'll grab the color white and the Sweet Flowers pattern. For the third cup, I'll grab the green and use streaky lines. Moving on to our shadows, add another layer above the table layer, and this is going to be our shadows underneath each cup. Tap and select Multiply for this layer. Now there are 3 designated shading brushes, but you can use any of the brushes for shading. I'll first show you a few examples. First, grab the dark blue. I'm going to use a butter brush and make a flat shadow underneath the cup. I'm just drawing a quick oval shape. Then I'll use soft charcoal fill for the second cup. And then I'm going to use gritty shader, which is a little bit softer on the texture. I like the flat look best for this illustration, but feel free to use whatever you like. I'm going to get rid of the texture shadows and just use butter brush underneath all of the cups. Now I find that this is a bit too dark, so I'm going to lower the opacity of this layer so it's a bit lighter of a shadow and more natural looking. Now let's add a layer for background textures. And I'll even put this over the table so that the final texture I use will be on top of all of it. I'll be using this layer as a multiply layer and turning down the opacity when I've picked the one that I like. These textures are really great because they are repeating. So what that means is that when you have your canvas straight on and you fill the entire canvas, as long as you don't move the canvas different directions, it doesn't matter where you brush, it will keep following along the same direction. It will darken if you go over the same spot, but it won't add texture in a new section unless you rotate your canvas. So if you want to play and rotate or overlap your textures, just rotate your canvas and reapply the brush. The stamp brushes are all fun hand-drawn stamps. These are fun to make your own embellishments or pattern the background. I'm going to use a pretty paint texture for my background, and I'll use a bigger line weight to apply this to the entire canvas. I turned my opacity down because otherwise, with the multiply overlay, it's pretty dark. Alright, and we are done. This is the floral cups illustration all finished and full of fun patterns and textures. I hope you had so much fun and that the tutorial helped you learn some cool techniques to create your illustrations. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more tutorials like this, and make sure to grab your freebies in the description box below. Thank you.